So we've got the largest listing of new investment grade properties in Australia, and we pay some of the largest commissions in Australia as well.
Today on the Revenue Acceleration podcast, my guest is Chris Bokic. Chris is the managing director of a company called Property in a Box. Chris, please introduce yourself and your company and tell us a bit about what you guys do.
Yeah, thanks, Anthony. It's really good to be here. My company, Property in a Box, has been around for 15, 20 years. I say 15 or 20 years because we were kind of called something else for the first 5 years. And the problem that we solve is basically giving our property transactors opportunities to transact. So you'd be familiar with the new property space. So there's a lot of people out there that want to sell property and they can't find the property prior to Property in a Box being around. And so the problem that we solve is a one-stop shop for those that want to transact in the property space. So we've got the largest listing of new investment grade properties in Australia, and we pay some of the largest commissions in Australia as well. Like I do some coaching, and there's two fundamental key elements that you need in a property transaction business. One is lots of properties to sell. The other is lots of clients to talk to. We tick that box of having lots of properties to sell.
That's really interesting business model. We spoke a little bit before the call about the types of people that actually use your software, and one of them is real estate agents, of course, transacting in properties. They can expand their property portfolio there to offer their clients. But is there any other markets, any other individuals or companies that might use your software?
Absolutely. So we started off with just targeting finance brokers or mortgage brokers. And the reason we did that was because they understood, number one, that we had a finance sub-aggregation business back in 2005, 2010. So we had a finance sub-aggregation business back then. The GFC hit, I think, 2007 from memory. And there was a lot of challenges there with finance brokers not making as much commission and so on. So what we decided to do when the GFC hit is we just thought, well, how do we turn this frown upside down? So we ended up creating a property aggregation business, and that's when Property in a Box was born from that. So we were originally just targeting finance brokers, and then over the last 15 years, we've transitioned from still targeting finance brokers to now including accountants and financial planners. And funnily enough, the last demographic or vertical that we targeted was the real estate sector. You would have thought that would have been the first place to go because they're already selling property, right? But real estate agents typically sell established properties to owner-occupiers. They're not really not to say they're not savvy, it's probably the right word, but they're not wired that way to understand someone's financial situation as much, obviously, as a finance broker, an accountant, or a financial planner is. So we started with the finance brokers, namely because we already had connections in that sector anyway with our finance aggregation business, and it was sort of the natural first place to go to for this Property in a Box product that we're launching. And then we evolved from that to accountants and financial planners, which are really trusted demographic. So if you think about what type of person goes to an accountant regularly, what type of person goes to a financial planner regularly, you might see a financial planner at least once to 4 times a year. What type of person goes to a real estate agent? Well, you might buy a property from that real estate agent, you never see them again. Right?
That's true.
So there's all these sorts of all these sorts of dynamics in motion. But finance brokers are really good because they're like a general practitioner of sorts for your finance. They're always looking for another way to interact with their database. So once they've sold a mortgage, by now working with Property in a Box, they can go back to that demographic and say, hey, you remember that mortgage I sold you 3 or 4 years ago? Well, rather than you paying that mortgage off until the day you die, why don't I show you a way where I can help you take years off your mortgage? And then that problem solved by providing a positive cash flow property for them. So that dealing with finance brokers gave them another opportunity to generate an income or revenue stream from the database that they're probably not going to get another transaction from for perhaps another 3 to 5 years or even ever. You don't always go back to a finance broker.
Yeah, sure. No problem. And the finance broker or accountants, they earn a commission from selling those properties through Property in a Box. Is that correct?
Yeah, we call it a referral fee. So they earn a fee, and basically it's quite interesting because when we started back in 2005-ish or whenever it was, we were charging, or not charging, we were paying a referral fee of, say, typical commission would be $33,000, right? That's pretty conservative commission. We would pay a $3,000 referral fee to the finance broker or accountant, and then we would keep the $30K. And we would do that because we would predominantly be doing the sale. But over the last 15 odd years, 20 odd years that we've been in business, what we've actually transitioned to is charging a subscription for our SaaS software model and paying 30 grand to the transactor and only keeping the 3 grand. So instead of us back in the day, initially in our model, paying a 10% referral fee and keeping a 90% of it, we've now created a feed the greed model where we are now paying 90% and we're keeping 10%. And we're far more lucrative today than we've ever been because we've got so many people wanting to jump on to our model and pay us a subscription, which, by the way, is $330 a month.
Yeah, that's really affordable.
Well, it is because they get a lot more than just the software. They get They get coaching, and they get 5 websites which the software creates. And they get AI. They get access to the largest listing location, variety of new investment grade properties in Australia, and they've got site plans and floor plans and marketing documentation and pretty much all the information that they need to be able to sell that property to the client, and obviously all the information that the client needs to be able to make an informed decision when it comes to purchasing that property.
Right, okay. So the name Property in a Box really does fit your business model. There's everything they need to sell a property to someone all at their fingertips, eh?
Yeah. And look, it's interesting because someone's asked me in the past what sort of advice would I give if they were going to start a SaaS business model today. It's a lot easier today than it was back in the day when I did it. And I think it's about trying to find that niche in that niche market and asking all the questions before you jump into building a SaaS. You really need to know what problem are you solving. That's the big thing. Is there a problem? Can people do without you?
Yeah. And
it was quite interesting because I wouldn't have followed that same advice when I started. I just thought creating a property aggregation model seemed like a pretty common sense thing to do. No one was doing it back then.
All right.
And we actually coined the term aggregation, property aggregation, because I had a finance aggregation business. I thought, wait a minute, you know what? Why don't we just do a property aggregation business, follow the same business models as the aggregators back then, which were Plan Choice, Fast, Connective, AFG. So these are pretty big aggregation platforms. The aggregation platforms, for those of you that don't understand, it's a conduit, if you like, between all of the finance brokers and the banks and non-bank lenders. Rather than 50,000 finance brokers going to the ANZ or Westpac or whatever and going directly to them, that would have driven those banks just mad. There needed to be some sort of conduit in the middle where they could look at compliance, systems and processes, and also offer a software platform, which is what all of those finance aggregators did. And so when we started Property in a Box, we knew that we had to provide marketing support, compliance, sales support, and that one element that was missing was the software. So we did the software because that's what the finance aggregators were doing, and we just thought, oh, well, this is what you do.
Right. So the target market of finance brokers, initially, that was mainly because of your network and what you were doing. You kind of fell into that and solved that problem kind of unknowingly.
Yeah, because what was happening is that a lot of the finance brokers were losing deals, and that money that they were making pre-GFC, they weren't making post-GFC. And so we thought, well, how can we fix this problem? And we thought, well, let's create a property aggregation model. We called it aggregation because the finance brokers, that demographic we were originally targeting, they're aware of that term. So I was targeting real estate agents, I probably wouldn't have used property aggregator. I probably would have just used property supply company.
Right. Yep.
So we positioned it specifically, Property in a Box, Australia's largest property aggregation platform. That was kind of the secondary message that we had. And we targeted the finance brokers. And I was used to recruiting finance brokers to my finance business. I mean, in my finance business, I recruited 120 mortgage brokers, and we were writing $70 million a month in home loans, which is
Wow.
pretty good.
Nice. Yeah, not
Yeah,
bad
it
at
was
all.
pretty good. And I recruited them all myself. And then based on all that experience and the propositions that we built within the finance aggregation model, it wasn't that difficult for me to then create a property aggregation model and just glean off some of the lessons that I learned in creating a property aggregation model, is the finance aggregation model, sorry. But yeah. So it ended up being another income stream mechanism for finance brokers who are talking to people about finance. They are aware of which clients can and cannot afford property, which clients they have should or should not be investing in property. And what we ended up doing is creating this particular model, which was quite daring at the time, because what we were doing is we're providing our members, our subscribers, with websites as well, which position them as property suppliers themselves.
Right.
I would provide you, for example, Anthony, who owns Anthony's Finance Emporium, brand that was Anthony's Property Emporium brand. Pop
Right.
it on
Yep.
a property website, and on the website it had all these properties on there as well. And now you could say to your finance clients, here, have a look at my property website. So we kind of extended the brand of the finance companies that we were dealing with to also include, a brand that was kind of similar to theirs, but in the property space.
Cool. So they can basically just white label your software and website and brand it as their own.
In essence, it was. In fact, when we first started, it wasn't white labeled. It was all about property in a box. And that was
Right.
just me being, hey, it's all about me, my business. I want to grow this business into, bigger than Google. But then you start to learn, well, you can do that and not make any money, or you can provide a white labeled model and make it all about the property transactor. So it's interesting, as I sort of look back on the evolution of property in a box. When we started, it was, we want to make all the money. We want it to be all about us. It went from that to now 15, 20 years later, it's all about your brand. Don't even mention us. We don't even want you to mention property in box. And by the way, you get 90% of the commissions. We only get 10% of the commissions. And we do all these things for you as well. So it's been an evolution and learning for myself. And I hope that some of the wisdom that I've learned will help any of your viewers out there, because there's a difference between knowledge and wisdom. And knowledge is something I tell you. Wisdom is you walking the walk as well.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Sure. No, I think what you said so
I've been
far.
around for a little while. So, I've made a lot of mistakes as well, but I've always tried to fall forward and then put in place systems and processes to ensure that we don't make the same mistakes again. One of our mottos was systemize or die.
All right. Yeah, that's great advice. And you were saying that since you kind of went from that initial outlook of it's all about you and make as much money as possible to then making it all about the clients, you're actually making more revenue that way anyway, more profits that way, yeah?
Yeah, and recurring revenue.
Yeah.
So, which is something that I really enjoy making. And I think, I used to work at World Vision, and in the corporate partnerships team in World Vision, I was exposed to a lot of corporates that wanted to raise their profile by, generating an income for the World Vision charity. And some of the business models that I got exposed to, they really hit me quite hard. I thought, wow, this is fantastic. Telecommunications company, they'll sell a product once. They'll get your telephone business. If you're a corporate, for example, they'll get your telephone business, and they might be making, depends on how big your bill is, but they might be making 7 to 10%. So, they could be making 2, 3, 4 grand a month, every month, just because they got that one sale. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Same with AGL, the energy, telephone, internet, mobile, energy. Those 4 sort of crucial services, they're all recurring revenue streams, and they're businesses that everybody wants. I back in the day, after I left World Vision and I wanted to start some recurring revenue business models, I started a telephone and internet business. And I was earning 10% on that. And I got to, I think, $10,000 a month in income in the first 6 months. And that's like back in 2005, 2006 as well.
Yeah.
So it's like, I had a few businesses going in that 2005 to 2010 era. My wife would say too many businesses, but that 10 grand a month today would have been equivalent to about 18 grand a month in generating that in a 6 month period was pretty decent.
Yeah, for sure. That's what got you hooked on the recurring revenue model, eh?
Look, it is. And it's funny because I work really hard, really long hours. I'm typically up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'll go to bed probably. I hit the sack at 8, so earlier to bed, early to rise. But there was a time in that 2005 to 2010 era where I'd be going to bed at 3 in the morning, working really hard. And I kind of dawned on me that the reason, my motivation for working really hard was that because at some point I didn't want to work. Right. And so ultimate motivation for working so hard was laziness. I didn't want to work, so I'm going to work really hard. And so it's kind of a bit bizarre. But then you get to the point where you do it for so long and you form all these habits. Now I don't know any different. I can't just not work. I think
Working's your life, eh?
Yeah. Well, I enjoy it. I guess that's the thing as well.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, you got to enjoy it. That's great. Thanks for sharing all that so far. What I want to touch on is with the finance brokers, you already had a network there. It was easy for you to probably get your first clients there. You then mentioned that you moved into more working with accountants. Did you have any challenges when you started to go into that niche, or was that really just as easy as the finance brokers because of your network? And if so, is there any other niches that you then moved into or target markets that you really didn't have any connections and that you had to kind of rethink how you were going to get new clients in that area?
Yeah, that's interesting. With accountants and financial planners, I sort of put them in that category. You've got, in terms of trust levels between the professional and the purchaser, you've got financial planners and accountants, which are the two most trusted sectors. And then under that, you've got finance brokers, and then you've got real estate agents. And that's not to say, real estate agents aren't trustworthy. It's nothing to do with that. It's got to do with how often that particular demographic sees that particular professional, right?
Sure.
As I think I touched on before. And the thing with getting on board accountants and financial planners, because they're sort of in that same category, is they have a more trusted relationship with their database, and therefore they are a lot more protective of that database. They could say, like, the type of lead that we would get from a financial planner is quantum leap ahead of the type of lead, and I'm generalizing here, but it's quantum leap ahead of the type of lead that I would get from a real estate agent or a finance broker, because you could have a financial planner or an accountant say to you, here's a client, I've referred to you this client. They know the client trusts them, they trust the client, and the client typically 9 times out of 10 is going to buy that property based on that recommendation from the financial planner or the accountant. Right. So the finance brokers were easier to get on because, number one, I was used to doing it. Number two, they needed what I had quite significantly. They needed that. And the financial planners and the accountants were harder to get on, but more rewarding once we got them on board.
Right.
So for the reasons I mentioned before, yeah. So it's quite interesting. Yeah, it's definitely worth, from our perspective anyway, working on that audience of financial planners and accountants is such a better yield. But in terms of approaching finance brokers and real estate agents, they're a lot easier to get on. So it's really good practice for your pitch, but they can also be very lucrative as well. So some finance brokers and real estate agents are awesome. Like, they're just amazing referral partners. But so I'm kind of just generalizing, of course. Yeah, you're going to get some really special ones in there. But so hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, of course. And are you still focusing on those markets to grow your business now, or are you a plateau with those guys and you're now moving into other areas?
No. Yeah, still focusing on real estate agents. And because I'm focusing on real estate agents, I'm also offering, and I have for probably a few years now, coaching services as well. Because they're not as, and I'm generalizing again, but they're not as sophisticated in terms of understanding what problems that need to be solved. When somebody buys a new property, they don't buy a new property for shits and giggles, right? They buy it because they want to solve a problem. They either want to pay less tax, or they want to pay their mortgage off quicker, or they want to retire comfortably. And I'm talking outside of first home buyers. So finance brokers and accountants and financial planners, that's the type of stuff that they have. They have those sorts of conversations with their clients about paying less tax, paying mortgage off quicker, retiring comfortably. That's just what they do. A real estate agent doesn't do that. So as a result of me targeting that market, well, hey, they're a market of licensed property transactors, but they're only operating in this small spectrum of selling property. In other words, they're only really mainly selling established properties to owner occupiers, and that's it. So they need a bit more hand-holding, and coaching to get them from point A to point B as quickly and as efficiently as possible.
The added benefit of having the coaching there sounds like it'd go down well when you're actually talking to these guys about coming on board.
And it's good for me as well. I'm getting younger, and it's quite easy for me to just go and sit on the balcony and, just watch the world go by.
Yeah.
And it's something I did for probably about a year. I didn't like it, and I found that, as you get older, if you don't use it, you lose it. So I thought, well, what else have I got to offer? And I just thought, I'm going to start doing some coaching. And I've created 6 modules, and I run those modules every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 9 o'clock in the morning. So my members jump on, they'll sit in my Zoom room, and I'll just do some coaching sessions with them. And then on Tuesdays and Thursdays at whatever time they want, I'll do one-on-one coaching sessions. And I use what I call the squeaky wheel model, which if you get in touch with me and you book it in, then you've got a one-on-one with me for an hour or so. Some people, I've got one-on-ones at 6:30 every Tuesday morning, for example. Others might do a one-on-one with me once a month, and so it just varies as well. But it certainly helps my members, and it helps me as well, because the more I provide coaching, the more I learn, of course, from each and every one of these different types of property transaction professionals.
Yeah, that's absolutely awesome. Sounds like you've got a really cool group there too. I'm sure you guys have a bit of fun when you jump on the group calls. You mentioned there was a success story, and it didn't come from an accountant or a financial planner or financial broker. It was a guy, his name was Vikas. He signed up with you and had a really successful outcome. Do you mind talking a little bit about him and what happened with that story?
Yeah, so just the backstory of that is just one of the things I do in the one-on-one coaching, I guess, is I want to try and productize this person or this business model, or how can we take your message, put it in a box, close the lid, put a ribbon on it, and then go and sell it, right? To make it palatable. We're all used to buying something for a fee, right? And so with Vikas, he's a little bit older than myself, and he's had a lot of success in property, in his personal wealth creation journey. And so having this conversation with Vikas, and I asked him to tell me a little bit more about himself, and he'd never sold property ever.
But he'd never sold property before coming and joining your program?
Never. But what he had got, and this is what I wanted to focus on, is he had about $30 million worth of assets in equity and property.
Right.
So he was asset rich. And what was interesting was his backstory. He used to live in India, in the slums of India, no hot and cold running water, no electricity, a little bit like Tasmania. And so he's come from the slum areas, had nothing, moved to Australia. Now he's got like $30 million worth of property. Right? What a fantastic story. So I thought, mate, this is the elephant in the room, right? How do we productize this? Well, this is a rags to riches model. This is fantastic. So we need to, I got him to tell me his story, write it down, get that story, productize it, put it on the website. And basically it's one of those stories. This is my background. It was pretty grim. This is what I have now through a bit of a struggle, and I've learned all these lessons. And if I can do it, you can do it as well. Let me show you how. That type of marketing package, I guess, is the story behind Vikas.
Yeah, right. Okay, cool. And do you have any other stories in regards to the financial planners, real estate agents and stuff that you mind sharing?
Yeah.
Anyone that might have been struggling before coming to you and then was able to explode their business after?
I do coaching every day. I've got stories where people have joined, and I've got one young guy. He's joined us. He's 25 years old. I can believe it, and he'd be doing probably, I think he's been with us for 4 weeks, maybe 5 weeks, and he's 25 years old, and he has got, in terms of a commission pipeline, products that have been sold and the commissions are waiting to come in, $250,000 worth of commissions ready to come in 4 weeks.
Nice. And is he a real estate agent, or is he just a guy that just wanted to get involved in property?
I don't even think he's from this planet, to be honest with you, but he's a very switched on guy, and he's partnered with another guy who'd be probably my vintage. So he'd be sort of 60, early 60s. He's a very switched on guy, very good at marketing. His background was, I think, marketing for a very large real estate firm I can't remember which one it was, Ray White or something like that. And so he was doing marketing for these big real estate firms. He's got his own really cool marketing models that he can't tell me about. If he does tell me, he's going to have to kill me, unfortunately. But it's highly classified. But he's just getting leads in, and his young sales agent is just doing sales like pretty much. He's gearing up to do one a day. Like that's insane. That's just
awesome.
insane.
Yeah, that's really
So
cool.
there's that. The demographic of people that do really well with us are probably finance brokers, accountants, mortgage brokers, and real estate agents. Financial planners, especially. I've got one financial planner. I've known him for a while. He's probably doing 3-4 sales a month because he's got a database of people that trust him. I think he actually sold his financial planning business, I don't know, maybe a year or two ago. And when he sold it, I think, if my understanding's right, he had some agreement where, I'm selling it to you, you do all the financial planning, but I still want to approach them with property. And it was a very smart exit strategy out of the financial planning.
Yeah, definitely. Very smart.
And so now he's approaching all these guys and he's kicking some really good goals. And not only that, but he's such a good guy that I've actually got him doing mentoring as well with my members. So if I get members that are quite new and they need a bit of support in packaging up a deal, I'll refer them across to John, and John will help package them up. And he might take a clip on the sale, but at least, if your comms at 30 to 40K, well, that's 15 to 20K if you go 50-50 comms on the comms. So they're pretty pleased with that type of arrangement as well. And it gives some of the younger guns that don't have the experience a little bit of learning from John, bit of mentoring, and then they can start doing their own sales moving forward. He's a great guy. And I think I've known John for, I'll be close to 15 years now. So off and on, he's been a member, but probably in the last 3 or 4 years, he's been a member and just been really active, because I think even probably the last 3 years, that's when he probably sold his his financial planning business. And he's just jumped in and done property full time. So I've got lots of stories like that where we get new members in and they're kicking goals. And look, there's the ones that aren't kicking goals are the ones that are in the coaching sessions learning how to kick goals. But, like I keep teaching people that are sort of the members that we've got, you just got to break it down. There's two really important elements in a property transaction business. One is lots of clients to talk to. The other is lots of properties to sell. And we tick the second box. So you only got to solve that one problem, which is lots of clients to talk to. And if you don't have marketing dollars, because typically you'd be going, okay, well, I've got to spend some money on Facebook and Instagram and so on. If you don't have the money for that, which is fine, then that's okay. We've got an all sing and all dance and turbocharged nitro-injected referral partner program, which allows our members to go and approach referral partners like accountants and financial planners and mortgage brokers and offer them their own free wealth creation education plug-and-play system. So,
I see. Yep.
Our members can, and it's white labeled as well. So if you're a member of Property in a Box, you can go to a real estate agent and say to the real estate agent, look, I've got something that's going to add a lot of value to your clients and to yourself. It'll add value to your clients by allowing your clients or helping your clients pay less tax, pay mortgage off quicker, retire comfortably, and build wealth through property. And it's also going to add dollars to your bottom line. And not only that, but I can create a landing page for you. Here's an email campaign to go out. Here's a series of webinars that you can invite your clients to. Here's banners for your website, Facebook campaigns. Here's some templated Canva templates that you can put your own brand on and put that on your Facebook page, and on and on and on.
Wow. That sounds epic. So if someone wanted to get involved, what's the best thing they can do? Just go to propertyinabox.com.au, or do you have any other ways you'd like people to get in touch?
The easiest way is propertyinabox.com.au, and look on that website. I'm just looking at the website now. I've only seen it 1,000 times, but there's a big grey button on the middle that says click here to find out more. Just click on that and then you can go down and book in for a live demo. I don't think anyone's joined Property in a Box without maybe one guy, I think about a month ago, joined Property in a Box without sitting in on my demo.
Right, okay.
But I have a very consultative onboarding approach, and I like to meet everybody before they join Property in a Box, so everyone fully understands who we are, what we do, how we can work together. I can answer all their questions, and then from that point, if they do want to join, there's a big orange Become a Member button at the top right-hand corner of the Property Inbox website. Click on that, just follow the bouncing ball.
As you mentioned when we'd spoken earlier that you are starting to implement some AI into the business. It's a big talking point over the last couple of years, and particularly in 2025. So what are you doing with AI, and how do you think it's going to evolve your business going forward?
Yeah, heavily investing in AI. Our software, I don't think I mentioned, but we're getting a total rebuild of the software starting
Right.
Monday, actually. So
Okay.
we just started that. In fact, my next meeting is with my IT team
Right.
to drill down a little bit more on what we're going to be implementing into the software. So AI is already in our software. I'm a big fan of ChatGPT and some of the other large language models out there, but ChatGPT is definitely my favourite.
Yep.
I guess because I use it all the time. And what we've already built into our existing software is we've got an API from OpenAI, which is obviously ChatGPT. We feed that into our software platform, and basically what it does is it creates a lot of business assets for property transaction businesses. So if you wanted to create a suite of emails or a suite of social media posts or blogs or ebooks, you could create property reports as well. Build a referral partner program, even though we've already got one. You could create content for your website, and on and on and on. So we've got all of these tools and all of these very carefully written prompts that you can just copy paste back into our what we call bot in a box, and it will just create those emails, those podcasts. It will create those emails. It will create those business assets, ebooks, and so on. And you're good to go. Then it's just a matter of grabbing the ebook, putting it in Canva, putting some nice images on it, and you've got a nice ebook, which is, of course, lead bait. And so one of the things that we're doing with the new version is we're keeping Bot in a Box in there. We're also going to create a GPT creator within that, so you can create your own agents. Also implementing things like Vappy, which is an outbound AI telemarketing model, which is absolutely fantastic. Yeah, Vappy.ai. If you haven't seen it, go and have a look at that.
Yeah, it's incredible.
It's amazing. And Creatify, maybe we could do something like that. If Creatify have an API, I don't know if they have yet, but I'm going to find that out. Yeah, if they do, I'll probably put something like that in there. But my focus with the new CRM version is going to be heavily built with AI, and AI that can be updated regularly, because you know what? 6 months from now, the whole AI landscape, because it's just growing exponentially, is going to look a lot different, or quite a bit different to what it is today. So whatever we decide on putting into the software today may be a lot different in 6 months. So we need to be able to move fairly quickly and have maybe tools like N8N and creating agents to help with the automations and sort of not just be reliant on the old school CRM.
Yep.
You know, I think one of the things that we have that's going to protect us from AI for a little while is that we do have a team manually uploading the property listings from all of our builders.
Okay.
And there are, all the builders don't have an API each that they can provide us. It's just going to stream properties onto our portal. They might have that on Planet Delusional, but they sure as hell don't have it on Planet Earth. So
I can't imagine builders would be at the forefront of technology like that either.
Yeah, so one of the other things will be creating a model where we can give our builders a free platform where they can list their own stock, and then that will feed it into our portal as well. And then they can use that portal that they're listing their own stock on to make available to other agents outside of Property in a Box, but it solves the problem of us having to list the stock for them. And there'll be quite a few other bells and whistles in that model for them to make sure that that's going to be an attractive model for the builders. But it solves a problem for me, partially anyway, of having a team constantly listing stock. I'll probably have more of a team that's more so managing that the builders are listing the stock in a timely fashion, and we probably have a few floaters around there of staff that will be able to list stock for builders in the event they can't list it. So, you know, there's lots of these little things that we're putting into our software platform, but AI is something that's really exciting, I guess, because it's something that you can leverage off. Yep. You know, I keep saying the two most important elements in your business is clients to talk to and properties to present. So supply and demand, right? But the other two important elements, time and money, right? So if you can save yourself some time, you're going to make some money, or you're going to save yourself some money as well. So if we can save ourselves some time by giving out a really good free service for the builders and they're listing all the stock, well, that kind of is like an API of sorts.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's a good point you mentioned about the leverage, because, some of the conversations around AI these days is AI are taking all these jobs, and what are we going to do as AI takes over the world? But I think, particularly at this stage, if you look at AI as a leverage tool to be able to take over some of those mundane tasks, take over some of that manual labor, and then move people that are doing that into higher leverage positions where they can manage things from a higher perspective rather than down in the trenches. So yeah, I think AI leveraged in the right way, it won't take jobs. It'll just help people leverage into higher positions and work more on strategy rather than the day-to-day tasks.
Yeah, there's a lot of people still not using it. It's amazing. Like I said, I did coaching quite a bit, and I've come across the odd person that says ChatGPT. What? Never heard of it.
Yeah.
So it's like talking to somebody that's never seen Star Wars or never seen a city.
Right.
And I actually get quite excited because I say, well, if you've not seen it, you better sit down, because this is going to blow your socks off.
Yeah, it certainly does. Once you start getting involved in it, we can't even imagine where it's going to be at the end of this year. It's just evolving so fast.
Yeah. And other software platforms like Notebook LM, which can create a podcast. Yeah. Not as good as this one, of course, but I mean, it creates a fantastic podcast. And, we use that quite a bit. Like I'll sit down with a member, we'll open up ChatGPT and we'll create a book. Yep. Right? So there's another lead magnet. And it's actually quite interesting the way that you can use it, where you can say to ChatGPT, so I'll say to my member, what do you want to create a book on? And one of them was Lorraine Hollett, who owns a company called Without Boundaries, and it's a property investment business, obviously. And I said, let's write a book. What do you want to write the book on? And she said, well, I'm really interested in things like manifestation and books like The Secret by Rhonda Byrne. And I'm interested in selling property as well. So is there a way that we could combine those two? And I said, yeah, sure. So let's jump onto ChatGPT. And I said to ChatGPT, give me the top 10 books ever written on manifestation, similar to books like The Secret. And he gave me the top 10 books. And then I said, now give me the top 10 books ever written on property investment. And he gave me the top 10 books. And then I said, now give me the top 10 lessons from each one of those books. And he gave me the 100 lessons. And then I said, now I want you to write this in a book. I want you to write it in the form of, or in the style of, and I gave it an author's name. It was an author's name that Lorraine Hollett wanted to use. Can't remember the author. Mm-hmm. Write it in long form. Write it so that it seamlessly ties in together. And voila, we wrote a 40,000 word book in less than an hour. Wow. And then we have this book. So there's one asset. We've got a book. Now, what we did is we got that book, we dragged it into Notebook LM and clicked generate, and it just generated a podcast, which is a 20-minute long podcast. It did that in about maybe 5-10 minutes. And it's a fantastic podcast. So now you've got two assets. You've got a book that is quite unique in terms of being all about manifestation, generating that can-do attitude and believing in yourself, coupled with property investment. What a powerful book. Sure. And then we've got a podcast to promote the book as well. And so it's things like that I do in the training sessions with my members. I know I did another one on one of my members wanted to specialise in what we call group homes or multi-dwelling homes. Yep. And so that's where you've got dual lock, dual living, duplex, co-living, rooming homes. So homes that have got more than one income stream. And he wanted to position himself as the expert in that area. So we wrote a book differentiating what's the difference between a dual lock and a dual living and a duplex type property and a co-living and a rooming home and so on. And that book was about 2,000 words, 3,000 words, didn't need to be too long. Put him down as the author, dragged it into Notebook LM, created a podcast, and now he's got a book and a podcast to promote the book. It's a great business asset.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, not only assets for that business, but just that idea itself, that's a business in a box that you could take and start a business with that.
That's the exciting thing, isn't it? Like with AI, there's so many AI tools out there, but there's a lot resting on your imagination. How can I use that AI tool and that AI tool with that AI tool?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
combine them together. Yeah. So there's still that human element of creation, being creative and trying to work out, well, how can I use those AI tools in my respective industry to help add value to my members?
100%. Yeah, and that's where that leverage comes in, using the human element to leverage all of those tools together to create something amazing. So yeah, for sure. That's really cool. Going back into the property industry itself, what kind of trends are you seeing in 2025 in Australia, and what do you kind of anticipate happening with the elections coming up, and then how that may affect your business?
Look, with the elections, don't even want to get started on that because I don't trust any of them. But that's just my personal opinion. Look, there's a bonus if interest rates go up, prices go down. If interest rates go down, prices go up. And there's always a reason for someone to buy property at any given time. But look, in terms of looking at different trends, I mean, it depends. There's different trends that's happening in the software world, like a vertical SaaS industry. There's plug and play SaaS tools out there now, like Go High Level. You can just use that software and you can attach your own proposition to it and target your own industry and bolt on a few unique selling propositions there. And it's the same within the property world. There's all sorts of different types of software that's being developed as well. So that's one trend just in that. There's another trend in terms of in the real estate world, especially in the new property space, where back in the day it used to be an NRAS, National Rental Affordability Scheme, was a new kid on the block and everyone was selling that. And then the next thing was NDIS, the National Disability, the Special Disability Accommodation. So there was that. That's kind of starting to die off a little bit now, but there's still some people selling those. Now the new kid on the block is more co-living and rooming homes. And so, which is one of the reasons why I've created another business, which is specifically building dual lock, dual living, duplex, co-living, rooming homes right throughout Victoria, Central Coast, New South Wales and up to Victoria, and only making those properties available to Property in a Box members. They're the new kid on the block, more than one income per property, a positive cash flow property. But the thing that we can do is we can actually build them in high capital growth corridors. So typically, if it's a low rental return property, it's in a high capital growth corridor. If it's a high rental return property, it's in a low capital growth corridor. So to have a high rental return property in a high capital growth corridor is quite unique. It's good to be able to get a good positive income and have that property in an area where hopefully the property's going to double in the next 7 to 10 years, right? So and have your cake and eat it too. So I guess in terms of trends, that's another trend specific to our industry where we're just focusing now on these particular property types.
So that new business you mentioned, that's something that's only going to be available to Property in a Box members.
Yeah. And so it's backed by a couple of the biggest builders in Australia. And so we create the floor plans, we source the land, and then we've got these really good builders that have been around since Noah played fullback for Jerusalem, and they're able to go out there and build these properties for us. But they're only available if you're a Property in a Box member.
Right. Okay, cool. That's an added bonus for anyone looking to sign up, for sure.
Yeah, and excellent service too with that, because one of the owners of the business, my business partner, is a very, very savvy guy. And so within that particular business model, what we're doing, which no one else is doing as far as I'm aware, and I deal with 400 odd builders, is that we're actually going to be running webinars every Wednesday at 7 o'clock. And so what our members can do is they can talk to their clients, they can encourage the clients to find out more about these properties, invite them to the webinar, and then myself and my business partner will be doing these presentations every 7 o'clock. And it just helps to create a funnel, I guess, where we have some sort of uniformity in terms of what's being presented to the clients.
Yep.
So my members' job role is to find a client, ensure they have intent and capacity. In other words, they're ready, willing and able, and then book them into a Zoom webinar every Wednesday at 7 o'clock, and then we can do the presentation, educate them, give them all the information they need, and that's going to help with transactions and help my members close sales as well.
Wow, that's really cool. Geez, yeah, I think I've got a few friends that want to take a look at Property in a Box with all that in there, for sure.
Well, you got my number, Anthony. Give us a buzz.
For sure.
I don't normally deal with clients directly. What I can do is I would refer you to some of my agents that are absolutely guns, and the ones that are really client focused, I'd certainly get someone that'll look after you.
Look, Chris, I don't want to take up much more of your time, but just before we leave, you did touch on it earlier right at the start, but could you just leave with your biggest piece of advice for other SaaS founders out there that are in that startup or growth phase? What would you say to them to be able to kind of navigate those early waters and really get some traction with their particular product or service?
Make sure you're solving a problem. is the big one, even though that's not what I thought I was doing back in the day, but I've sort of learned a lot. Solve a problem, make sure it's something that people can't do without, do it better than anybody else. For me, have 5 unique selling propositions that are going to differentiate you from everyone else, and make sure you pull them off really, really well. Like, largest listing location, variety of new investment grade properties in Australia. That's a proposition that we've pulled off really well.
Yep.
We've been doing it for a very long time. Coaching, no one's doing coaching in this industry in the new property space. So,
Yep.
I do coaching every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then Tuesdays and Thursdays I do one-on-one coaching. Contract management, we're the only one that does contract management. So we do complete end-to-end contract management. And so there's, 5 websites. So we provide you with 5 websites. Why 5? We can have 5 different marketing propositions to differentiate yourself from other people, but you can also target 5 different demographics. So you could have a first home buyer website, positive cash flow website, an SMSF specialist website, multi-group home website where you're just selling, dual lock, dual living, duplex, etc., and so on. So to be able to create 5 unique selling propositions that are going to differentiate you from your opposition is one thing. Creating them, like actually creating them, is another thing. But then being able to do that pitch and present it to people and let it roll off the tongue. It's called an elevator pitch for a reason, that you can tell somebody what makes you different between floor 1 and floor 2, not floor 1 and the 22nd floor, right? You've only got a certain amount of time, so you've got to practice your pitch as well. And I think that's it, because the plug and play SaaS tools are out there. You can create some pretty easy SaaS tools. Think about your price points, make yourself competitive. But honestly, I would rather be charging a little bit more and getting more value add, offering more value add, than being the cheapest and the
compete on
nasty.
price. That's fantastic advice. Thank you very much for sharing all that. Really appreciate your time today. And for anyone watching that's interested in Chris and Property in a Box, just go to propertyinabox.com.au and click on the big grey button in the middle and book in a time to get a demo. I'm sure you'll be absolutely blown away with the stuff that's involved with Property in a Box. So thank you very much, Chris.
Thanks, Anthony. Thanks for having me. And I'll appreciate it. I'll catch you later. See you, mate.